Welcome to this video about the onion architecture. Today what we're going to look at is how to implement the onion architecture in a very small and very simple project. So this project is just one solution containing an infrastructure project, domain, application, and API. So what they together will do is just get a list of products. We're not concerned about setting up a particular database, so for this example we'll just send a mock product that exists inside of infrastructure. And how we would like this one to operate is that a client is going to send a request to this outer layer of our little onion here. So a client requests the API part of a project. This API part of the project will rely on a service that exists inside of this layer called application. Application knows about domain, and domain is where we keep our business entities. So we're going to have an entity class called product, and we're going to return a list of products from application, and application is somehow going to get to this layer down here called infrastructure, and this is where it's going to start to get interesting when we're doing the onion architecture. We're going to start off with an empty solution. So this empty solution has 0 projects, and we're going to create a new project, and this new project is going to be the inner layer of the onion. So we're going to create a class library here, and we're going to call it domain. And make sure you pick .NET version 6.0. Now that it's done creating the project, we can now start creating our first entity class. And we will just create the effectively same application as we did with the REST API. We're just interested in making it in a different way. So we just want to apply this new architecture. So we can still call it product, and we can still put the same properties in. So public int ID, get set, public int price, get set, public string name, get set, like this. And we'll just rename this one proc.cs. So another thing I will put inside of the domain project is the directory containing the interfaces for the layer just outside of domain. But notice how I don't put the implementation to any interfaces inside of this layer. So I'm just gonna write IRepository-Service.cs, and I'm gonna pick interface here. So for this interface, we'll just make a get all method. So we'll write public list product get all products, like this. So this one is effectively done now. There is not much content to the domain, and we're going to create the project that surrounds the domain. And that one is called application. And the first thing we're going to do now is we're going to add a dependency. So let's pick add reference, and there's this little checkbox. Of course, there's only one project we can pick right now, and we'll click add. Just maximize this, look at dependencies, look at .NET 6.0, look at project, and we see we have domain here, so it's all right. Now let's just rename this one. So we can make one that's called application service or product service. And now we're ready to fill some content into this one. The first thing we're going to do now is we're going to create a constructor. like this. And now we have an empty constructor. And what we need inside of this service is we need to call the repository in order to get the products. But we need to create an abstraction first. And this abstraction is of course going to be an interface. So we're going to place an interface inside of the application project here. And we're going to call this folder here. It's just an empty directory interface. I should probably pluralize this interfaces like this. And we're going to write IRepository-Repository.cs. And now I can put IProduct-Repository, and I just call this one repository. And I'm going to create an instance variable here. Private IProduct-Repository. I can call this one underscore product repository. And here I say underscore product repository equals repository. So this is just a simple dependency injection we have here. And now I will write the method that will get the items from the repository. But first I have to actually define that query inside of the iProduct repository. So I'm gonna make one here that says public list product get all products. And we'll just import the missing reference. And now we can make this method here. Public list product get all products. Import missing reference. Make a scope. Return underscore product repository get all products. So right now there is no implementation for this one. We just have an interface. And in order to actually get some products, we need to create the method inside of a new project that will implement the iProduct repository. There is one more thing we have to do now, and that is we need to actually implement the interface that we've created for the product service. So right now we just have public class product service. We need to write colon, and we need to write iProduct service like this. So now we're going to create a new project called infrastructure. We do it like we always do. Make a class library and call this one infrastructure. So what we're going to create inside of this infrastructure is the implementation to the iProduct repository. Now let's just try and rename this one again. Like this, and we'll add a reference. And we can just add a reference to application. We don't have to add a reference to domain because application itself already references domain. So if we click on dependencies now and go to .NET 6.0 and go to projects, we'll see that we also have domain here. We can start off by implementing the interface called IProduct-Repository like this. So what we'll get a message about is that we need to implement the missing members, and this is the get all products. So right now we don't have a database, but we can just make this one return a mock product. We're not really interested in making entity framework queries now. We just want to make the infrastructure method so that it emulates what we would be doing with Entity Framework. This is just to simulate how onion architecture works. So we'll just write return new list product, new product, ID equals 1, name bug product, price equals 42. Like this. So what we have to do now is we have to create the API project that is actually going to tie all this together so that a client can call our API, and then they'll eventually get to a point where they can fetch this product here. So we'll add a new project, and now we're going to pick a web application, and we're going to pick the one called Web API, and we will just call this one API. And now we click create. So we can start off by just deleting all the things we don't want to have. We don't care about the Docker file right now, and we don't care about the weather forecast. So we can just delete that. And in here we can just delete all this stuff. And we'll rename this product controller. So the thing that is really interesting about clean architecture is the way that dependencies are set up. So in order for us to actually start calling anything, we need to know about the application layer, because we're going to use a service to actually trigger this one method here to get a list of products, and we're going to get products from the repository, right? But in order for actually making these dependencies work, we need to inject some stuff, because the way that we get the repository is using dependency injection. So we need to inject this one somewhere. So we go into program.cs, and inside of program.cs we make all the configurations. The part that we care about inside of the program.cs file is this one, the builder. So the builder has something called services, and this builder.services we're going to put into a method, and this method we're going to put into two different classes. So this is where it starts to get a little more complicated. Inside of application we'll create a new directory, and we could just call this one Dependency Resolver. Click OK. And inside of this we will make a class called Dependency Resolver Service.cs, and we can make this one static. The only content of this class is one static method, and this one static method is only used for configuration purposes. So we'll call this one public static void register application layer. And what we need to register the application layer is what's called IService collection. We call this one services. And it doesn't know about what this one is, and it's because we need to actually install a NuGet package. So if we go to NuGet packages and we call, we have it right here, dependency injection, and we will install this Microsoft.extensions.dependency injections into the application project. And now we are asked if we want to import this. And we're going to just write services.add-scoped. And then we have these little diamond brackets here where we can say we want to add the iProduct service and the product service as the implementation for this interface. And now we can go back into the program.cs file. And what we'll do here is we'll start off by making sure that we have a reference to the application project, like this. And then we write application dot like this one, dot dependency resolver, dependency resolver service, register application layer, and then we'll inject the builder.services into this one. So this is what I was talking about earlier. We need this one to configure our application. So we just made a method, and this method just adds the implementation here to the iProduct service. And we also need to do the exact same thing for the repository, because we also have an interface for the repository and an implementation for that one. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go into infrastructure, and we're going to add a directory called Dependency Resolver. And inside of Dependency Resolver, we will add Dependency Resolver Service.cs. So Dependency Resolver Service is still a static class that has one method. Public static void register infrastructure layer. And we still need this dependency here. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a NuGet package now to infrastructure instead of application. And it's still dependency injection. Add it here. And then we say IService collection services services.add scoped. And then we add the interface first, IRepository-Repository, product repository. And now we can go back into program.cs and we can add this line as long as we do have the correct reference. I'm gonna add this one reference here. And now we have our dependencies set up. Notice how, if we go and we look at our references, we are referencing everything from the API. And why is that allowed? Well, API is the outermost layer along with infrastructure. But if we did not have a reference to infrastructure, it would not be possible for anything to use anything inside of infrastructure. Why? Well, because application that needs to find all of the products using the service method, well, it needs to find a way to contact the infrastructure. But infrastructure is outside of application. So that's why we don't add the dependency. There is no infrastructure dependency inside of application. But if we go into the product service, we can see that we have the interface, but not the concrete product repository in here. So we can still call get all products from a layer that is outside of the application. The application is capable of finding stuff that is outside of here because it depends on an abstraction that is not outside. It is inside of the own layer. So how does it get it? Well, it gets it because of the API gives it that concretion. And how does the API give it that concretion? Well, I'm happy you ask. if we go back to program.cs, this dependency resolver service right here, well, this is resolving our implementation. So the product repository, which exists inside of infrastructure, is now the implementation to the interface that is inside of application. And that is why the service is capable of getting all products, even though that is something that exists outside of application itself. So let's go into product controller, and now we can make an endpoint. But first we'll make a constructor, public product controller, and inside of product controller we'll have IProduct-Service, private IProduct-Service, product service, underscore product service equals service. So now we have injected the service here, and we can make an endpoint, HTTP get public get, we'll just say list of product, get products, return product service, get all products. So here we also depend on an abstraction. And we can run this program by going to API project. Let's see what we actually called. Here we have it, .NET run. And after the building phase is done, we can go to this HTTP server. And here we have it, advanced, accept the risk and continue. And we can go straight into product. And then we get the mock product here. So our application works as expected. We're getting the data that we want, and we're using Onion architecture.